with his son, in his final year, McLuhan puts together what is called the tetrad of technological effects. And now we're going to see exactly what happens. Given everything now, all of this is like one of those, anybody watching the Olympics? This is one of those ski jump things. See, I've now been sliding down the hill for half an hour, and now I'm going to go, whoop, okay, and land on McLuhan. So there are four things that media does, or electronic technology, if you will. I'm not going to go into full electronic technology, but this could be applied to all sorts of things. And as I was driving down here this morning, by dint of what I was hearing on NPR, I applied it to drones, and it works. And it's scary, so I don't want to tell you about it. But it extends a faculty or a sense. That's the first thing it does. I'll give you some examples in just a second. If pushed to its furthest limit, strangely enough, a new technology or media will flip into its reverse. It will do the opposite of what it was intended to do, and you'll see that in just a second. It brings back older media that had been pushed out, and it pushes something out. It obsolesces, it makes something obsolete. We stop using something because we have this, but it brings something back. Let's take a look at that in terms of radio and TV. First of all, what radio and TV did were they emphasized and enhanced a connectivity. We could see things all over the place. We could watch Elvis in the Ed Sullivan Show. We could watch the Beatles. We could see the broadcast. The assassination film of Kennedy was on TV within 24 hours. The various disasters, historical moments, whatever, gradually became live, and so on and so on. What it brought back to a culture that had slightly lost touch with that, because what was before radio? We had telegraph. Telegraph had no oral components. Telegraph had no speech or hearing. It was just visual. Sure, it made that nice sound, which had nothing to do with the message unless you were well trained in Morse code. But telegraph was non-visual, non-audio. Radio and then television retrieved that as media. It threw, of course, telegraph out, and radio and TV diminished the use of telephone. That would come back, of course, later. It also took physical bodies out of the picture, because you didn't have to come to me for news anymore. You could turn on your radio or your television. And in the early days of radio, people would go to each other's houses to listen to the radio, but then gradually everybody had their own, same with TV. What does it reverse? The interesting thing is that if you push these to their ultimate goal, they turn into theater. They turn into performance space. And Orson Welles, for example, panicked an entire nation with his radio show about the invasion from Mars, and television has increased the rate of performance, if you will. And if you have any doubts about where I'm going with that, I can only mention to you reality television. Now, cable TV changes this a little bit. It moves us on to the next phase. What it does enhance, of course, is diversity in broadcasting. Now, instead of 4 television stations, you had 400 and then 4,000, and then you just stop counting. It retrieves point-to-point communication. This house gets that one, that house gets that one. Now suddenly we have a different mode, and you can't achieve the same kind of cultural saturation you got with television in the days of the Beatles or Elvis. Because at that time they only had 4 channels to choose from. Now, if you don't want to watch it, there are 300 others you can take. So, network TV goes out the door, and what it reverses is, again, slightly counterintuitively, the global becomes local. Smaller television stations are possible, smaller broadcasts, satellite radio, specialist stations, local stuff, broadcast from your local library. So what does the internet do? What the internet has done, it has enhanced the individual voice, right? We talked about that just now, the blogging, the IMing, right? It's no longer group distribution. What it's brought back is it's brought back the manuscript. It's brought back the individual's contribution, the person sitting there writing and then handing it over. There are lovely blogs out there. There are amazing things being done. There's also an awful lot of it, and here comes the language again, crap. But if everybody back in the 9th century had had parchment and the ability to write, they probably would have also written an awful lot of it. Right? That proves nothing. Broadcast media, on its way out, some say, we don't know. And then, of course, what has happened is, Heidegger's point, that all time and space has diminished. Instead of temporary information, we have everything all the time, everywhere. We have, information is now data. Data is omnipresent. And we can find everything all the time. And what used to be a very specialized world of individual research and localized knowledge is more and more and more becoming generalized. A lot of people knowing a little bit about a lot, or a lot about a lot of little bits. So fashion has gone the same way, in that it has gone from the oral tradition of I can only copy you if I'm standing next to you or close to you, or I can see you, and you can tell me about how to make things, and you can show me how it's done. And occasionally somebody comes from abroad, or somebody gets married to someone, and it filters down into society that Anne of Bohemia wore those shoes. And we all go, ooh, those shoes, right? And then a couple of hundred years later, everybody's wearing those shoes. But it takes a couple of generations, maybe. When we get to the manuscript stage, we can actually start making plates. And very soon, we get that. We get drawings of fashions. We get plates being distributed. We get dolls, of course, and handcraft. And then print runs away with it, because now we can get fashion plates distributed, and telegraph can even send pictures, and trains can take information from Paris to Moscow in 3 days. It's wonderful. And Masha and Irina and Natalia can all wear the latest Paris dresses. It's a beautiful thing. And of course newsprint, magazines, all that good stuff that we even live with now, and that the internet in many, many, many ways is emulating. Electronic broadcast does much the same for us. We get news at the speed of light, we get fashion shows online, we get radio descriptions, we get visual descriptions, we get entire shows devoted to this stuff. Hollywood becomes a major purveyor of fashion because it has to be 6 months ahead, because movies take that long to make. So whatever the actors and actresses are wearing has to be ahead of fashion, so that they can at least land there at the right time when the movie comes out. So Hollywood becomes the prognosticator, becomes the predictor of fashion as a professional problem. And of course, these are movies you have to go to, by the way. These are not downloadable yet. These are movies you have to wait to see in your movie house. And my grandmother, who was a seamstress, would wait for 3 years to see what the latest fashions were. And then she'd copy those, and those would be hot in her local place because nobody else had seen the movie either. TV we've talked about, and then of course we now have the voyeurism of television, which reveals itself in the question, who are you wearing? So where are we? We are in a place now where, because we have no fixed frame to work with, we have every frame to work with. We have no point of view, we have every point of view. We have no time frame, we have a natural time frame. And what we have from McLuhan is the same thing as we will see later from Lyotard, is that our culture, our modern culture, strives to have no point of view. We strive to suspend judgment. We are a non-prejudiced culture, if you will, although you could debate that. But at least the ideal is that we don't prejudge opinions, places, people, or art. And of course, we have everything contemporary. So there we are. We are in a time of fragmentation and dissolution. But we also have what Heidegger also called the leveling of things, where everything becomes equal because everything is near. If nothing is far away, if nothing is close, then everything is at the same level of experience. And so what people generally talk about when they talk about the death of fashion in the early 60s and from there on, is actually the disappearance of a hierarchical culture. There is no high, there is no low. And what people are bemoaning and mourning, and once again, for those of you who are in 424, and you're thinking, oh God, he's going to mention Downton Abbey now. One of the best sociological investigations of the dissolution of Western class structure. How's that for a sentence? That's Downton Abbey. But there we are. Fast fashion appears with the first internet generation, and that is no coincidence. That's because we do not have seasons, we do not have close, we do not have far. We do not wait. We have no past, we have no future. Oops. So here we are with fashion. And what has happened to fashion as a result of this? And here comes the landing, so get ready with your scorecards, right? Fashion has enhanced blogging and e-commerce. In fashion, the internet has enhanced blogging and e-commerce. The individual voice, right? That's where we were. So we have blogs, we have e-commerce, we have Etsy, and we have Pinterest, and all this good stuff. What has it flipped? Pushed to its extreme on the internet. Fashion now has become such that everything and nothing is mainstream and subculture. It's all leveled. There is no near, there is no far, there is no above, there is no sub. Right? Maybe very, very briefly, just for a second, until it gets out on the web. What has been made obsolete, or is being made obsolete as we speak? As we speak, we see the power of editors diminishing. Yes? And we see the front rows of fashion shows gradually changing. Okay? Patty Gammison shows up. And the fashion weeks are being obsolete. There are more fashion weeks than there are weeks in the year. So everywhere and nowhere is Fashion Week all at once. What has been retrieved, and this is probably the most interesting one, is that what has been retrieved is craft. Etsy. It's just one example of many. What has happened to fashion on the internet is that it has retreated or returned to the individual and to the individual hand. And we have participatory social groups. We have the blogs again, but we have the sub-blogs and the localized things, and you follow my pins and I'll follow yours, and we have the Facebook page and all that. So, now what? What do we keep an eye on? As aficionados of the fashion culture, with fashion on the internet, what do we watch for? First of all, there's a big change happening right in front of us where the laptops are disappearing. The computer as such is disappearing. Desktops are largely being perceived now by the younger kids as something that are steam-driven. Artifacts of an earlier age. Laptops are cumbersome. It's handhelds, it's tablets, it's smaller and smaller. I don't know about Google Glass, but that's the direction. You see, the problem with designing interactive electronic media these days is what to do with the screen. And as soon as we can make the screen disappear, well, it will. So we've got to watch out for that. What's going to happen? but it's all there all the time, either in your eye, by your eye, on your eye, implanted in your brain, implanted in your ear. Is it visual? Is it oral? Is it, what is it? Watch the middle schoolers. You guys are already old, sorry to say. Watch the middle schoolers. They're the ones to show us where this is heading and what the next tetrad will be. Screen will disappear. Things may calm down a little bit. Everybody got very excited about radio when it first came out. Everybody got very excited about TV when it first came out. Maybe we're just getting over the fact now. Second generation, we go, it's just the internet. Let's watch out for that. Let's watch out for overheating. And what we have to be careful about is also the fact that things generally move in the wrong direction. So the counterintuitive might be something to pull up. And this latest upset with the fact that we thought on the internet nobody knew you were a dog was the famous cartoon. But it seems that on the internet everybody knows everything about you now. And that might cause a backlash. I don't know if it will. But if it does, then that will affect fashion, because the speed of fashion has been dictated by the speed of media. And if the media slows down, so will fashion. And on that happy note, thank you very much.
Good luck writing a one-page summary.
If anybody needs anything, just email me.
Well, you'll notice that we are taping these for